Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel, and the saga continues. I've got an update for you on a really interesting story from yesterday, in which billionaire hedge fund runner Mike Novogratz, who runs Galaxy Digital, I think they call themselves a merchant bank or something quirky like that, but it sounds mostly like a hedge fund pushing for institutional adoption of cryptocurrencies. He had some things to say in private, which I don't think he actually necessarily intended to get out, and it resulted in a story from CoinDesk, which Ripple CEO Brad Garlinghouse read and then retweeted with his own comments. Not so happy, Ripple CEO Brad Garlinghouse, not so happy with what Mike Novogratz had to say or how CoinDesk covered it. So I'll provide a synopsis on that. I'll make sure it's quick, since I already ran through the story yesterday, but there's an update today. Mike Novogratz has come out praising Ripple, just generally speaking, but hasn't entirely backed off from what he said in private the other day, which came out in that CoinDesk piece. So I'm going to be running through that. But before we go any further here, if you would please, ever so delicately, tap that like button. It helps with the YouTube algorithm. And Moon Lambo, appreciate. And consider subscribing to the Moon Lambo channel if you have not yet, because if you do, all of your wildest dreams will come true. That's science. So, to quickly run through this again, there was this tweet from Brad Garlinghouse, and this was the most fun part for me yesterday. So I'll just read, there are two tweets from him, actually. I'll just read them both first, and then I'll explain briefly the CoinDesk article. From Brad Garlinghouse, is this thing on? Can I get a fact check on aisle CoinDesk? Ooh, I like that, Mr. Garlinghouse getting sassy. I like it. I was laughing quite a bit when I first came across that. And then he writes, XRP has outperformed Bitcoin and the broader crypto market in 2020. XRP is up 44%, Bitcoin's up 33% so far this year. And then he also wrote, this is the same guy that said Bitcoin will go to $20,000 in 2019. And he's talking about Mike Novogratz, who did indeed predict that Bitcoin was going to hit $20,000 in by December of 2019, which of course didn't happen there. And here was the piece, and I'll just provide a couple quick quotes so we can get rolling here. But it was titled by CoinDesk, Galaxy's Novogratz XRP will underperform immensely again this year. And so there was a private discussion going on, recordings not allowed, but somebody did record this conversation, and it was leaked to CoinDesk here. And so I think it's perhaps the case that Mike Novogratz was speaking in more bold terms, certainly less reserved than he would have had he realized that something like this would get out. Nonetheless, it seems to me clearly, I think anyway, that the perception that he has of Ripple and XRP, I think there's some serious truth to this. He didn't really do any backpedaling. I'll show you his brand new quotes, but he was definitely more complimentary of Ripple today without really entirely backing up. But you can say here, here we go. Yeah, he was talking about here. So here's a quote from him in this recorded piece that wasn't supposed to be recorded. Ripple, the company, owns 60 billion of the coins of the XRP, Novogratz began. That's a lot of it. And then he writes, when I'm buying a stock, if I know someone's selling $10 billion worth of Bitcoin at some price, it makes me less excited to buy the stock. And so he was talking about this idea of Ripple selling XRP and price suppression, which I've debunked umpteen million times on this channel, so I'm not going to do it again in this video. And then it was debunked. To be fair, CoinDesk didn't do some completely horrible job. They did cite Brianne Madigan, who came back with just some cold hard facts, citing that there's more Bitcoin introduced in the ecosystem, Bitcoin ecosystem, than there is XRP getting released by Ripple through escrow. And so that was good, but they didn't fact check the price portion of this, and so it's funny to state with the headline here, XRP will underperform immensely again this year, says Galaxy's Novogratz, and then to not factually state that XRP is performing better than Bitcoin. It seems like at a minimum a missed opportunity. Let's say that. And then there was this article also, and I'm about to get to Mike Novogratz's tweets. If you just sit tight another minute here, I'll get to what he said today. He had this string of like 5 tweets, which was fascinating to get some insight from what he actually thinks about Ripple and XRP, because he does not frequently talk about Ripple and XRP, despite his holdings in the company. But anyway, so here's another title from You Today, crypto media outlet. Mike Novogratz praises Ripple CEO, says XRP and Ethereum in proving phase here. And this mostly covers the tweets. So actually, I'm gonna hold on for 1 second. This is the one I meant to pull up, actually. Active XRP investor says Novogratz was bluffing, saying XRP would underperform again this year. And so this caught my attention here. As reported by CoinDesk during the TD Ameritrade National Link 2020 conference, Mike Novogratz, the head of Galaxy Digital, stated that Ripple's XRP would underperform again this year. He said it in a closed session, however. CoinDesk managed to access a recording from one of the participants. Commenting on that piece of news, Eric Dedoon, an early-stage startup investor and an obvious XRP proponent, said that perhaps Mike Novogratz did not mean exactly what he said or had something else on his mind. The thing is that Novogratz's Galaxy Digital is a Ripple investor. However, he believes that XRP will again underperform this year. And here's what Eric Dedoon tweeted. I think he's a sharp guy. I've highlighted a number of things that he said over the course of my channel here, and so I think he's insightful. And so here's his perspective. Not that I completely agree with it, but I love diversity of thought. So here's what he wrote. Anyone taking this seriously has lost the plot. His fund is a large investor in Ripple. I'm not saying he is manipulating, but he isn't stupid, and discrediting the asset that his major portfolio piece is building around likely isn't all there is to the story. Yeah, and I think it's fair enough point, and we'll never know for sure what's in Mike Novogratz's heart. But despite being invested, you can be invested in a company and still not be thrilled with everything that they're doing. But it's interesting that fundamentally what Ripple's doing in terms of how they're dispersing their XRP holdings, well, okay, it's actually decreased recently, but the fact that they're dispersing, this was not new. Mike Novogratz was aware of this getting involved in the first place, though. So it seems to me just a portion of this, so he's got his hands in this, okay, but perhaps he's not particularly thrilled of it regardless here. And so here's the tweets that he put out today. It's a string of 5. I'm just going to read them all in a row here. Galaxy, and that's his firm that he calls I believe he calls it a merchant bank. I always think of it more as a hedge fund, frankly. But anyway, Galaxy is a big investor in Ripple Labs. I would like to see them do well. Brad Garlinghouse has done a great job as CEO. I commented the XRP tokens underperformed Bitcoin last year because Ripple owns a lot of them. I have been almost solely long Bitcoin for the past 15 months. Okay, and again, oh man, I so bad. Every time I read something like that, I want to debunk the nonsense about Ripple suppressing price with XRP, but I won't do it again in this video. Tweet number 2. This year, the broader alt market, including XRP, has outperformed Bitcoin. This has surprised me. That said, I see more and more large accounts getting educated and set up to be accumulators of Bitcoin, and believe on a risk-adjusted basis, it's the best place to bet on crypto. So Bitcoin still his number one. Okay, perfectly fine. I like diversity of thought. I don't think it's going to be number one forever, but super duper, even if he just thinks it in the short term here. Now, the fact that this caught him off guard, this price action, is surprising to me. Because it's not that I knew for sure that when the price, in terms of altcoin market, I didn't know when it would start going, but it didn't surprise me. And look, I like Mike Novogratz, I do, despite what he's saying here. He's a sharp guy. I appreciate his insights in general, and the fact that he disagrees, it's not something to be taken personally. If you're in the XRP community, I don't think he's mean it. He just has opinions that are definitely different than mine. Okay, and I don't think that. Me having the same set of facts as him, we're arriving at different conclusions. That's what's happening here. But I think he's probably, despite me not liking what he's saying, some of this, I think he's operating in good faith here. If I had to guess here. And so just following the market, though, and what traders who actually know what they're doing, because I'm not a trader, I'm not a chart analyst, I don't offer price predictions, I don't offer financial advice, period. Just following a bunch of individuals, it wasn't a surprise to me at all that the altcoin market would start to rally. Because historically it has. And from my perspective, just as your everyday Joe Schmo here looking at this stuff, I haven't seen a whole lot of change in terms of the way that speculators are behaving within the market. Sure, some crypto projects died out from 2017 with the ICO craze. Okay, super duper. But just I'll tell you what, don't ever get stuck thinking that just because these people are very notable in the world of crypto, that their opinions should be taken as gospel necessarily. That would not be wise. Just these people are not. I think Mike's a sharp guy, but just don't think that he's smarter than you necessarily here, or that he knows more than you on some things. Now, I'm sure he knows all sorts of stuff that I don't know. I'm not trying to say that he doesn't. Again, I'm trying to be crystal clear. I actually do like the guy, and I think he's smart, and he does know a bunch of stuff, but he doesn't know everything. And he didn't expect that the altcoin market would do what it's done this year, and he thought the Bitcoin was going to 20,000. So that's all I'm trying to say here. His next tweet was, Bitcoin has found a place as a weapon in macro portfolios as digital gold, a hard asset. All other cryptos are venture bets and will only have lasting value if they become a product that is useful. Ethereum might be the trust level people build on. If it does, it's a great bet. Now, that last part, that conceptually makes a ton of sense. He's talking about utility actually mattering in terms of, long-term viability. Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's why I'm so on board for XRP. It's freaking getting used. All right, and then he writes, XRP and many other cryptos like Ethereum are still in the proving phase. Okay, I dispute that. XRP is not in the proving phase. It's no longer a science experiment. It's getting used out in the wild. Businesses are actually building on top of the ledger, and as far as what Ripple has done building on top of the XRP ledger, it's resulting in additional businesses that are banks and remittance companies engaging in business models that frankly were not possible prior to this. That's staying power right there. It is not going away. This is not a proving phase, as evidenced by their Series C funding, in which they got $200 million from, resulting in a $10 billion company valuation. When you get Series C funding, that's an indication that you've already proven yourself as a company. And I know we're talking about XRP, and of course it's different than Ripple, but XRP is part of the reason that Ripple has proved itself as a company. In terms of, will their business model have long-term sustainability? And this is not financial advice, but yes. That's my opinion. That's not financial advice, but yes. But anyway, he writes, they aren't going to succeed as solely a store of value as Bitcoin has taken that lane. XRP does have its own fervent community, largely in Asia, but has a large supply to absorb, some 57% or so. This was an interesting insight here. So he's one of the individuals that think that Bitcoin, solely by the nature of it being the first cryptocurrency in existence, that's all it takes for it to perpetually have a store of value, but other cryptocurrencies won't do that because Bitcoin has. Now, there is something to be said for first mover and staying power, but I don't understand how an asset that doesn't do anything can exist in perpetuity. So I still maintain that if Bitcoin doesn't ultimately do something, I don't know how it's going to stay number one in market cap, or if you fast forward a few decades out, have any meaningful actual market price. I'm skeptical. I don't know for sure, but I like thinking through this stuff, and so I definitely hold a different position than Michael Novogratz on that. But here it's XRP does have its own fervent community, largely in Asia, but has a large supply to absorb, some 57% or so. The price of XRP will be determined like all prices. If there are more buyers than sellers, and the company has a lot of control here, the price will rise. The company needs to distribute in a rational way at the same time building a real and scalable use case. I hope they do. So he didn't really back off from what he said yesterday, but he said more. We got more insight into what he's actually thinking, and he was very cordial in terms of what he had to say about Ripple and Brad Garlinghouse. He's just giving honest thoughts about XRP there. He didn't speak necessarily about XRP not performing price-wise so well in 2020. So there you go. But even if he actually holds that opinion, I think that it's based on, he's looking at fundamentals that I think are flawed. I think the way he's analyzing it, I think it's a flawed perception in terms of the price suppression. I don't know that he's in any meaningful way looked into it or read the fourth quarter markets report, the most recent one from Ripple, the XRP markets report, in which you can see that XRP is, the amount sold has gone down, and also with the fact that while XRP was skyrocketing almost $4 per XRP in 2018, Ripple was selling much more XRP, and it didn't suppress the price. Okay, so it's a bogus argument, Now here I am debunking. Damn it! I was trying to not do that. All right, I'm done. I'm off the soapbox. All right, here we go. Now here's a tweet from fellow XRP YouTuber, the Digital Asset Investor, and this is probably a good way to wrap up the video here. And he wrote it in response to that first tweet today from Michael Novogratz. He wrote, "Why are you telling your customers to allocate 18% of their crypto portfolios to XRP, an asset that you think is going down?" That's a good question. And look at this. Here you can see February 2020 initial fund weightings, XRP 18%. A good call on that, Digital Asset Investor. I had to highlight that. Kudos to you, sir. But that's it for this video. I am not a financial advisor. Do not buy or sell anything because of anything that I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo!